All right, guys, we are here with an extra special guest, my uncle, Landon Carter. It's kind of amazing that I haven't interviewed you yet. I've only had 6 episodes.
Okay.
So I think it's time.
Okay.
And what's really awesome is that in my own personal development, I'm going through a lot of the things that you've already gone through.
Yeah.
And that you help a lot of people go through themselves.
Yeah.
So I have this little intro that I'm gonna read just so that the audience can understand, the pretty impactful and amazing life I think that you've lived so far.
Great. I'm eager to hear it from my nephew.
So, imagine a man who graduates from Yale with an engineering degree and then earns an MBA from Harvard Business School. He's on the fast track, helping develop the iconic Snowmass Resort at Aspen, and by all accounts has achieved the American dream by the age of 28. But then comes the reset, a powerful realization that despite all success, he wasn't happy. What followed wasn't a minor course correction, but a complete reinvention of his life's purpose. This is a man who left the corporate world to meditate with a guru in India, who became a lead trainer for EST, guiding over 50,000 people through intense personal transformation, and who founded a running club that raised over $1 million to end world hunger. And his journey into the unknown didn't stop there. He has tested the absolute limits of human endurance, completing the grueling 1,100-mile Iditarod dog sled race across the Alaskan wilderness. He's also a world champion rower, a pilot, and an entrepreneur who has both the highs of successful IPOs and the lows of a company going bankrupt. A failure he speaks about with radical transparency. He has taken all of these lived experiences from the boardrooms at Sony and Polaroid to the frozen trails of Alaska and distilled them into a powerful philosophy for living a life both success and satisfaction. He is the author of books like Living Awake and The Happiness Handbook, and today he's here to share the wisdom gained from a life lived to the absolute fullest.
Oh, well, great. Thanks, Matt. That's good. That was a good summary.
It's pretty amazing. When I was originally doing kind of research about you and the things that you've accomplished, it really was amazing that you were by all means kind of going down the path of success.
Absolutely. The interesting thing is, when I look at what motivates people to kind of go to wake up.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and this didn't happen to be my path, but a lot of people bottom out. They're drunk. They go to AA. That's a kind of a wake up. They experience
challenges.
They fail.
Yeah.
They're despondent. Whatever it is, and that wasn't what happened to me.
Yeah.
And
what woke you up? Changed?
What happened is I was in Aspen, Colorado, as you said, helping develop Snowmass at Aspen. I was racing motocross. Turned pro in motocross. And I skied every noon hour.
Yeah.
On my lunch hour, and then went back to work. And it was funny because I was just is this it?
Yeah.
Is this what life is about?
Yeah.
And I was just unhappy. I thought there's something fundamentally wrong. I actually went to a therapist, and he said, "Well, tell me about your parents." I said, "This guy doesn't know anything." And I read Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda had died, but I took some of his courses, and then I read a a book of translations of Sai Baba, Satya Sai Baba's talks. And it was the most amazing thing. It never happened before. But the words went like this.
They spoke to you. They resonated.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, I just got to go.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm unhappy. I don't see my way. I thought, if I had a condominium on the ski slope, I had money in the bank, I had a car, a motorcycle, I thought, I'm 28. If at 40, I was going to be old then. At 40, if I have twice this, will I be happy?
Yeah.
I thought, nope, no way.
Yeah.
So then I went over to India, and my mother, God bless her soul, she was like crying. Whoa, you're going over to sit in a cave in India, and what about all that expensive education? I said, I don't care. I'm unhappy. And I got over to India, and I spent time with 7 months or so with Sai Baba, and I had 14 hours sitting in the back of the car with him, and I watched him materialize things, and I talked to a person.
Well, like what? Tell me about that.
He would go like this with his hand, and then he would the vibhuti, which is kind of the sacred ash. Anyway, it's ash would come out, and then sometimes he would materialize a necklace, or sometimes he'd materialize a gold ring, a ring for me, that they always fit the finger that they were going to go on. And
I mean, I'm learning that some people have powers that's not magic. It's not a fake thing.
No.
They have ultimate control over matter.
Yeah. I've got some examples of that, but the thing is, and then I talked to somebody who had died. He could come over there. He met Sai Baba on the astral plane, and Sai Baba said, "Come to India." He and his wife were from Tustin, California, Walter and Elsie Cowan, and they came over to India, and Sai Baba said, "Hi, Walter. Hi, Elsie." Never met them before.
Yeah. And
they became kind of devotees of his. And then he had quick pneumonia, died, watched his body go out into the his wife, he was in the morgue, and his wife, said, "You can't touch him." He had cotton up his nose. He was dead.
He's dead for a while then.
3 days.
3 days.
And his wife said, "Nobody can touch him until Sai Baba comes." Sai Baba came, put his hand on his chest, and Walter was awake.
What?
Alive. And here's Walter's experience, because I talked to him afterwards.
Yeah.
He said, "I died, and then I was out of my body. I was watching them take my body in a gurney down to the ambulance, and I was afraid that they hadn't locked the door and the gurney would come out." And then he said, "Then I found myself in a big kind of room with a bunch of judges, and Sai Baba was my advocate, and we reviewed my entire life, everything that had happened and what I'd done, and they said to me, you can stay here, or you can go back.
Yeah.
There's still some more work for you to do if you go back."
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll go back." Boom, he was back.
Whoa.
And that was the 3 days, and so I mean, it was like, so.
That actually corresponds with a friend of mine. On my first episode, he recounts his near-death experience.
Yeah.
And he, exactly the same. He had spirit guides that were showing him kind of his history and his life.
Yeah, exactly.
He was 17 or 18 at that time.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, "You can come here to unfathomable love."
Yeah.
Or you can go back, and they showed him what his life was going to be like, but they removed it from his memory so that he still had free will in how he lived.
Wow, interesting.
But he felt inspired
Wow.
by what they showed him. He's like, I want to go back. He's like, I have life to live.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's interesting because Diane had a out of body experiences when she was 8.
Whoa.
You know, in the hospital, and she
Yeah.
goes out of her body, and her father's there, and she thought, I can't go through the wall, and I, you know, and then I had a kind of once I took I was in the jungle in Ecuador, and I took ayahuasca.
Okay.
And I had a totally out of body experience, and I was, you know, I was not in my body, then I was out of my body, then I was in my body, I was out of my body, and I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I got the experience.
Yeah.
And so.
What do you think that kind of helped you understand where you didn't know that before?
So what it says to me is that who we are is the aware consciousness with no form.
Yeah.
The form is what you're aware of. So, and if you look at a non-dual state as the aware consciousness, and a dual state, like, you know, you're sitting here and I'm over here,
A duality.
duality.
Okay, sure.
That state is what you're aware of. Okay, and that's this reality that we live in. Okay, and the non-dual consciousness is, in a sense, it's like a drop of God.
Yeah.
It's of the creative force.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have so much energy and consciousness that we use to animate. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We use to animate this body, right? So we're not this body. Well, we are, but we're also not.
Would you say that we're a consciousness having a human experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's led me to one. If I'm a consciousness animating this body, I'm always creating my reality.
Yeah.
Now, part of my path, you know, 50 years since I was, more than 50 years now, 54 years since I was 28 and went to India and kind of woke up.
Yeah.
Part of my 50-year path has been learning how am I creating my reality.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are, the aware consciousness. That's why meditation helps some, because it gives you a awareness, witness perspective.
Like the observer.
Well, what is this body?
Yeah.
Experientially, body sensations, emotions, thoughts.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. So then there's a structure to that, and so we're creating through this personality structure, and then what we do and don't do, what we say and don't say, then creates what we have. And or don't have, whatever, with the reality that we experience. Okay, so there's layers of that.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you feel that you learned this like right when you
No.
went over to Sai Baba?
No way, no way. It's been a long. But the interesting thing is, it was always available to me. It took me a long time to get what I know now.
Would you say, kind of bring the knowledge that you are more than your body,
Yeah.
and that you are unified as a consciousness, as part of God.
Yeah.
But how do you put that into your day to day when you wake up and you put your feet on the floor? How does that come through?
Yeah, how do you manifest?
Yeah.
How do you manifest that? Well, first of all, so there's a number of.
Let's go back, because
Okay.
I think you know the things that you've gone through in terms of est.
Yeah.
You know, the things that you have lived in your life. Like
Yeah.
you are a lived it
Yeah.
philosophy.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the things that you learned by trial and error, by engaging with 50,000 people, knowing what they are responsive to, but then also resistant to,
Yeah.
you were able to see, okay, what is this human condition
Yeah.
that we are trying to be powerfully living through?
That's good. Well put. I mean, I would say in the 70s, which is, when I was teaching EST and invented the 6-day course, which was their advanced
And also the
version.
teen course.
What?
You also invented the
And
teen
the teen
course.
course. The
Yeah.
teen course then was a 10-day or something like that, and then became a 6-day course. Because all the adults wanted what the teens had gotten. And
You know why I think the teens is a little bit more powerful? Because they have less shit to clean
yeah,
up.
well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But they also have less life experience that they can relate to,
Yeah.
that you can then relate to say, hey, look, you're not being responsible here, or you're screwing yourself up.
Yeah.
You're
Less of a-
sabotaging your own life.
Less of a path that has to be recorrected.
Yeah, exactly. But then everybody's got to make their mistakes. I mean,
Yeah.
my first wife, I would say it's interesting because one of my major learnings has been about relationships, intimate relationships.
Yeah.
I'm on my third marriage, which you could say, well, man, this guy doesn't know anything. But on the other hand,
You wrote the recent book, Falling in Love Backwards.
yeah, and we wrote that, and I wrote a book called
Which is
Living Awake.
co-written with his wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say that my first marriage was a total fantasy.
Yeah.
It was the sister of my roommate at Andover, and I decided at 14 I was going to marry her. She was 11, and it was a fantasy.
You don't know what you. Yeah.
And we didn't talk to each other. We couldn't talk to each other. We didn't know anything. Nothing.
that was a bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that kind of partly woke me up.
Sure.
Then with the mother of the children. That was 20 years, and it was interesting because we had tried to talk about things, but we were talking at the wrong level.
Yeah.
So we were admitting what was going on with us, but we were blaming each other for, well, why don't you stop doing that, because that irritates me.
You're affecting me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
why don't you stop affecting me?
yeah,
that way?
you stop doing that. Because if you stop
if
doing
you stop doing that,
then I'm
I
going to
won't
be
get-
happy.
That's right.
And so one of the things that I teach now, which was so obvious, is that one of the mistakes that we all make, almost all of us, is that the outside world creates my internal experience. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I were to ask most people, I'd say, well, what would make you happier? Oh, well, more money, more freedom, a trip, whatever. Something out here in the world will somehow or other make me happy, or what makes you unhappy.
Yeah.
Oh, blah blah blah. The negatives of all of
Yeah.
that. Okay, so that's. You can't solve anything there because you're dealing with. It's almost like if we're creating our reality 100%, and I say we are, and that's a learning process. You don't know.
And you're doing it right now.
I am.
So the only place to create your reality is right now.
It starts. What I looked at was I'm the center of my reality.
Yeah.
So the first place I need to handle is in here.
Yeah.
If I can't handle in here, how am I going to handle out here? So, and there's lots of examples of that in the public thing with all of the trouble in the world these days.
That's actually like one of the challenges that I'm wrestling with. In my progression through, I have kind of thought if I meditate hard enough, if I think positive thoughts, and I create from now, I can create the future that I want. But I haven't gone inside enough to really understand what garbage still lies inside.
That's okay. So let's. We could segue to that. So one of the things. See, there's.
You have 4 questions, right? That part of your teachings are: who am I really?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm carrying around that I need to clear
Yeah,
up?
yeah, exactly.
Number 3, how do I live more effectively in the present moment?
And then how do I create my future?
And then what future do I want to create?
So that's great. You've got a good summary of it. That's great, Matt. Okay. So first of all, in this moment
Yeah.
is the only moment of reality.
Yeah.
Where it's actually real. I mean, you're experiencing whatever emotions are there, body sensations, whatever thought is here in this moment. The past. What is the past? The past is nothing more than memories. They're thought forms. Okay. Thought forms, and the fact that there's a sequence to them gives you a sense of time. Okay. So then what's the future? Well, the future is imagination. Hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And it's another thought form.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the question becomes, and this is the past, and this is the future. So how much of this, the past, influences me now?
Yeah.
Or how much of the future influences me now? Like that. Okay. So you're always, so a lot of people are anxious about the future. It hasn't happened.
But they're anxious.
Oh my God, they're
anxious
right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Right now, they're anxious and fearful, and etc.
Yeah.
So that's affecting them.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people are resentful from something that happened in the past, or they're angry because this reminds me of something that happened, or I'm sad and depressed. From what?
Yeah.
This moment?
Yeah.
No, can't be from this moment. It can be from, as I said, the memories. All right. So part of the whole thing, if managing yourself in this moment, is let me go down to the absolute essence of it. The absolute essence of it is, in this moment, you can't change one thing. Well, where does choice come in there? We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I can't change one thing. So Buddha, I like Buddha because because it's not a religion as such. It's really he said, how in the heck are we causing our own suffering? How can you eliminate that? And it was a very simple formula. He talked about, don't grasp for what you don't have. Don't try to push away aversion what you do have. So that means what? Accept this moment exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the way you eliminate the suffering that you put on top of what the heck is happening. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not death and sickness and accidents and challenges. That's all part of this reality of what's happening.
Life, right.
Yeah, exactly. But you can eliminate the suffering part of it. And part of that is just to accept things the way they are. It doesn't mean you submit like I'm a victim to it. It just becomes
surrender, though.
You surrender to the way it is, but then you can do something about it.
Yeah.
At least that's the apparency of choice and being able to take action.
Well, I think that there's a good distinction there, is that in Buddha, the suffering arises from our own idea that the present moment and the challenges that we're experiencing shouldn't be the way that they are.
I know.
And as soon as you not succumb, but surrender to the fact that sometimes life is challenging. Sometimes people die who you love. Sometimes, things don't work out at work.
Yep.
These are challenges.
Yeah.
They don't create the suffering.
Exactly.
You create the suffering by what you're believing
Okay.
about that.
So that's the essence of this moment, of managing yourself in the present moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, we only got so much energy, remember. So we only got so much energy.
I'm getting less and less every day.
To create through this structure.
Yeah.
So if I'm resentful and I'm spending my time energizing my resentment, I'm taking some of that allocated energy, creative energy, into resentment. Or let's say I've learned to be just shy and not speak out, not say what I want. So I'm manifesting, taking my energy and applying it to the shyness and being shy. And a lot of people that experience being a victim, they're creating, I'm a victim, and therefore they create a victim reality.
Yes.
They're still creating 100%.
They are, but they don't know that they are.
No, and they think, and that's why people have said, well, they put their power outside themselves. Yeah, that's true, but no. The power is always there in you, but you're creating a victim structure.
So we are living, though, in society, in the world of a structure that enforces that.
I know.
And so for you to be kind of go over to practice with Sai Baba
Yeah.
and kind of be awakened to this, like what the Western culture views as kind of like just hit the metrics, do the standard life, that's going to make you happy. But no one who does that is ever happy. And so it's got to be, as you have kind of found, this blending of all of these different life lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so go on.
So that first mistake is like you're saying that the outside world creates my internal experience.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Everybody can and everybody can see that, and it's useful to just spend a little time in your journal writing down, oh, well, I think this, I think that, I think that. One of the things that when I was in India, I went to Ramana Maharshi's ashram in Tiruvannamalai. And there's a mountain called Arunachala, and there was a cave up in Arunachala where Ramana Maharshi had sat for days and days and days, a lot of meditation. Yeah. And I went up there and sat in that cave by myself for a day, and I was walking down from the mountain, and it was a sunset, and I could see, and I was by myself on the path, and all of a sudden, oh no! It's like whoa, and then there was a little car that I could hear go put 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 inside this Om experience, and I went, whoa! Ramana Maharshi was a really powerful dude.
Yeah,
and his whole thing was,
where did that sound come from?
With the Om,
was that inside yourself?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't. But I had it one other time in a big island in Hawaii, on Maui, up in the crater, one other time. But I don't know. But the point was, Ramana Maharshi's deal was, who am I?
Yeah.
And then whatever your mind comes up with is not that, not that, not that, and you just go not that, not that. Okay. That was kind of an aside, but the point is that
Did you come down from there knowing that, like, what things you had thought about, you're like, that's not me?
exactly. So you've got these things that, look, if you're the witness and able to see let's say the victimhood, then that's the first step. You kind of see.
Awareness.
And it's an awareness. It's bringing consciousness to that which was unconscious. That's Jung, by the way. And
all those sounds that you were making have meaning in their resonance and stuff. So So
exactly. So I mean, all of them are just little jolts of stuff.
Yeah.
So
if you take away all the things that you're not.
So, but the point is, first of all, you go, oh. You see, so a lot of people aren't brave enough or courageous enough, or they don't think, they spent their whole life trying to avoid resisting what's going on with them. Rather than leaning into the negative and bringing consciousness to it and seeing its nature, and then going, I can let that go.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you a good example of that, because this is the second mistake that everybody makes at some level.
I made it just about 2 weeks ago.
And that is that there's something wrong with me. You know, I'm screwed up. I'm not okay. For me, it was I'm not good enough.
Me too.
And a lot of people have that one. And my wife Diane has that her voice doesn't count. She doesn't matter. But it's all the same. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wasn't good enough. And there was something wrong with me, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember distinctly having that experience at about 8 years old.
Okay, so you remembered exactly when you kind of latched on, and then that became a little bit of who you refer to yourself
Yeah,
as.
okay.
Because I'm still going through that process.
Well, everybody has it. So
Yeah.
here's the dynamics of that in my experience. One, so I had in my book Living Awake, there's a great example of a woman that was a great therapist, and she had a horrible, abusive, sexually abusive, blah 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 childhood. And she described all that to me in a session that we had, and I thought, well, how come she didn't brighten up? And she was like, and I said, you never said that there was, because her parents had said, you're worthless, you're no good. And I said, you know what? You agreed with that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. No, I never agreed with that. I'm a successful, blah, 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 therapist, and I help other people. I said, no, you've been trying to overcome that you're worthless your whole life. And I said, it's the I am that does it. Yeah. It's the I am worthless, which then creates part of the structure that you're creating reality through. Yeah. Now, nobody's going to go, "Hi, Matt. I'm Landon worthless. Yeah. I'm Landon no good. Yeah. Not good enough. I don't even know why you want to be with me. I'm so no good." So everybody then over this core identification, because it's part of your identity which you become attached to. Like my body, and over top of that, you then create a strategy for overcoming it. Yeah. For me, I was captain of the ski team and captain of the rugby team at Harvard Business School, and I was successful.
By all outward appearances, you were plenty good enough.
Exactly, and that's where at 28, it was like a wake up call, because it was like, what? I'm just chasing this phantom.
And it never
it's never going to produce happiness. Yeah. All of this success is never going to produce happiness. Yeah. So that was kind of the wake-up call. I didn't know what to do about it, but anyway. So that's the second mistake that we all make. Yeah. And one of the things that's so great in Diane's and my relationship is we're actually, when we get upset with each other, and by the way, the more intimate your relationship is, the more likely it is that you're going to get to the deep wounds that are there. Yep. And we all tend to have learned a way of defending ourselves or hunkering down and withdrawing and all of that kind of those strategies when we get criticized or apparently criticized.
Or when you hear somebody talk to you in a way that when you identified that belief of I'm not good enough, it triggers that, and then you go into defense mode. Exactly. And you're like, no, I'm going to do something.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm proving you wrong. Yeah. I'm right, you're wrong.
That's right.
All that.
But what also is important is that sometimes the people who you love the most, and this is actually more the truth.
It's the truth.
They are the ones who you get hurt more.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if you're the only one who can make me feel this painful, but there's a flip side to that, is because you love me so much that things in you are really coming out that are deep to your core.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no one can do that if you're not super in love.
Exactly. And it because it in a sense, it's after you're born, it's that relationship with your mother or mother and father, and then they're gone, and so now it's the new relationship, and a lot of people then just ditch the relationship at that point and try to find someone else, and they get all excited and sexually excited and all that stuff, and then just repeat the same damn thing
don't
again.
Work on the core.
No,
issue.
exactly. So one of the things is that when we get upset, we'll then sit down and talk about it as, and this is kind of dealing with it I think at the right level, which as I said, the mother of my children and I, we just couldn't quite get to it. And that is that, what is it that got reactivated in me actually? Underneath the anger or the I don't stop that. Underneath that is what? The hurt. And the sense of unworthiness and the sense of I'm not good enough. And interestingly enough, the more you're willing to let that come up.
That's incredible, because very few people are willing to look at problems with being vulnerable. Like, if something's a problem, they're the problem.
Exactly.
And for you guys to be able to take a problem and be like, what am I contributing to this?
Remember, you're 100% creating your own reality.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
So what's interesting. So I should say to Diane, I don't every single time. I should say thank you for reactivating this. What's happened though over the years is I don't go there anymore.
Yeah.
And she's almost done with hers because we've brought it up enough. You see, what happens is you get to a point where the trauma from childhood, where you felt invalidated, where you felt
unsafe,
like you didn't know anything, where you felt less than, you felt it like a diminished self. The trauma, and that's all got emotions around it, and they get stuck there. What happens is when you finally go into them and lean into them, you get wait a minute, I can experience that. I'm an adult. I can feel all of that angst and that sadness and that invalidation. I can feel that, and I'm still here. I'm still okay. Like right now, are you okay? I mean, I'm here. I'm this, And so what happens is that the power that they had on you when they were unconscious and they got reactivated,
I've heard
stops.
I've heard that.
And you work at it, and gradually you get I was upset, and then now we got to talk about it. This is much later, and then you start to get, and so it gets closer and closer, and then what happens is you start to notice, this is a situation where I might get upset, because you're getting so aware of it that basically it's not like you suppress it.
Right.
You let it. You experience it. You experience it. Look, what I say is, neither suppress. You're in this moment. Neither suppress nor express. You don't suppress it, and you don't express through it.
Okay.
In other words, if I'm noticing I'm pissed off at you, and and I'm starting to, I don't go there.
Yeah.
I go inward to experience it. So not suppress, not express, experience.
And you experience it from this observer
as much as
perspective,
you can.
Because that's the only way to really disassociate and remove that I am this thought or feeling.
Exactly. So every upset is a wake-up call. Yeah. That's a positive.
I love that you guys are doing
every
that.
upset's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And if you can get those triggers set in your life, where now I got to wake up, rather than I got to whatever,
ignore it,
play it out, play it out,
work it out, or
it doesn't work, which just reinforces the pattern.
Yeah.
If you know that these are ancient patterns expressed now in an adult form, but it's the same emotions, the same body sensations, the same, feelings that were all there. And the thoughts are more adult, but the essence of them is the same. Okay. So now we're going back to, I am a creative force energizing this structure of my personality. I've let go of some of the unconsciousness that has been reactivating me. And by the way, one of the things in this EST technology was basically you're basically upset at a whole bunch of different levels all the time.
Really?
You're a machine.
Yeah.
Stimulus response machine, going through life, thinking you're awake when you're actually asleep, sleepwalking through life. So that was that, and it's all about being responsible and stuff like that. So what happens now is,
so that's
I freed up some energy.
That's clearing it up.
It's clearing it up,
Yeah.
and that frees up energy to apply to what I want to create. See, so you have
now go from you freed up the energy to now kind of what future you want to create. How do you,
you don't necessarily
create that?
Yeah, okay, but that's great, because a lot of times from being reactivated, you're not creating the right. We got to create much more money, and that's not gonna do it.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
so but now let's say we've cleared up some of the things, so now I'm just here. So then I think you have to look at.
So hold on, so you can't get an understanding really of what you might want to create in your future until you actually are here now.
Right. Or you
Do you
have
think
these.
that's because you're kind of letting that message come in from the universe?
Exactly. Or you're
Okay.
the super conscious.
Because if you focus on the outside of what you thought made you happy, you're going to keep going into the same ego-centric kind of spiral
exactly.
without being in tune with, our souls.
Yeah,
kind
the
of
same rat in the wheel.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so then, but there are times, even for people that haven't cleared up a lot, where there's this sense of passion, and you got to listen to that too.
Yeah.
But let's just say that you've gone through life, you've been successful enough, but there's nothing that you've really been passionate about. Well, what happens is you kind of start to look and say, well, what really gives me joy and gives me a sense of satisfaction and gives me a sense of happiness? And it's not like the outside world's creating it, but what would be a unique expression of myself that only I can express? So you sit with those questions, and I'm not saying there's always an answer right there.
Yeah.
But the point is, now here's in creating. Let's say you have something, it'd be really cool. For no other reason that it would be cool. I'd like to create, I don't know, $1 million. What the hell?
Sure.
Why not? I could do wonderful stuff with it. I could give half of it away, or whatever. Or I could really, anyway, whatever. But here's the key. When you have to. So you imagine what it would be like to have created that,
Now.
and you create that experience of having already accomplished it.
Yes.
Of being satisfied, of being happy now.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't make any difference whether you actually manifest it or not, because that's a process of learning, of getting feedback, of making mistakes, of correcting, etc. And it's only going to be a milestone anyway in your path.
Have you heard the kind of thought that when you are the person that you want to be,
That's it. Yep. That's
you
it.
have the future that you want to
Exactly,
have.
now.
Because the future ends up mirroring who you are now.
Exactly.
And so it's not like you visualize having the things, but you embody being
Well, so
who...
you both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Both. Because you see, for example, you're building a house right now.
Yeah.
You guys had to imagine it.
I actually manifested the house.
Yeah, well, you've already
Yeah.
manifested.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point is that you and your wife, got the basics, and then you modified this and did that, and decided on that, and that reality didn't exist.
Yeah.
And and then if you're not so, oh my God, we're not going to be happy until we get it. It's like, oh no, we're getting it, and isn't it fun to manifest this? It might have been a little frustrating because it took longer than you wanted, but nonetheless, it's like, oh, this is great. We're creating a reality that didn't exist.
So it was months and months. We were on the list for this one specific lot that we wanted.
Yeah.
8 people in line ahead of us.
No.
And I had asked the guys at the head office, I'm like, how real is me getting this lot? And they're like, you're going to have to choose a second and third pick. And I visualized over the course of a month and a half going and getting the mail at the address that was for that one lot. And I imagined the giggles and the laughter of me and my kids like riding our skateboards to the mailbox, getting the mail out with that address on it. And I go into the office just on a whim. I'm inspired, I get some signal. I bring in like a little gift bag. That's the worst gift bag ever. It's like granola bars and like Belvita biscuits, and like no one wants that crap. And so I'm like, hey, I just wanted to see where I'm on the list. And they're like, well, let's look. And my name was right there in a big fat sticker on that property. So that was manifesting, and that actually was what started me on this journey of like, there is something to the intentions and the visualizations that I am creating my reality. Yeah. And so I'm just beginning this journey. And so
you're doing a great job. So now here's the thing.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people, this is from Chris Duncan, who wrote a book called You're Not Broken, and some other things. He's a cool guy. He's a New Zealander living in Australia.
Nice.
And but one
and
of
for those of you who don't know, Landon lived part-time in New Zealand.
Well, we sold our house in New Zealand, but we were there for 25 years.
It was awesome.
Yeah, with your father, Terry. Yeah. And okay.
So Duncan.
Yeah. So but there's the kind of fix-it structure.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a creative structure.
All right.
So one of the things that a lot of people are trying to fix themselves. So they're looking at the past and spending all their energy trying to fix themselves, as if somehow if I fix myself, then I'll probably have what I want. Okay. That may take you your whole damn life, and you may not. So I suggest that the better thing is kind of what you did. Focus on what you would really like to create. Realize that it's not when you get there you'll be happy. You're happy having a vision and a challenge and the adventure of creating this reality. Okay. And you're happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy now. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Then against that mirror of the creation and the happiness, if you are unhappy, you deal with it.
Got it.
The past will come up because it'll try to Look, your mind is there to cause your survival, so it's going to repeat the patterns from the past. That's your challenge. The mind is useful, but it's not your best friend.
Yeah.
So against your focusing and your commitment to what it is that you're creating, there will be challenges. And every time there is, you go, okay, what can I let go of?
Yeah.
What can I let go of here? And you don't have to worry about fixing your past. It'll show up. You want to have a loving relationship with your wife. We both do.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about fixing it because the upsets will come up, and
you get stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what happens is
they're never going to go away though.
Well, They're getting there.
They're getting there?
They're getting there. I can
That's
tell you
hopeful
that.
for
yeah,
me.
yeah, it is. They're
That's
definitely
hopeful.
hopeful.
Yeah.
Because you see, what happens is, you know that, let's say when you're making love, or or you're really feeling that connection with the kids, or so, there's a real bond connected, and it's more than just we're near each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you're upset, that connection's kind of broken.
Yeah.
And you can feel that difference. And your commitment is to get back to the connection.
Yeah.
So the upsets are, your intention is to create a more loving relationship, more accepting, more, it's all the elements of a more loving relationship.
Yeah.
And then what comes up are the upsets. Now, then the upsets become an opportunity. They're not a problem. They're not oh my God, now we're upset and it's terrible and we don't love each other. Because that's feeding the upset to make a decision.
Yeah.
You're using the upsets to go, what do I need to let go of? By the way, when one person's upset, usually both people are upset.
For sure.
What do both of us need to let go of so we can regain the connection at a deeper level and more conscious?
So you're saying that after doing that a bunch of times, there may not be much left
it gets
to get
less.
upset about?
It gets, first of all, it gets less powerful.
Yeah.
In terms of driving you away. It becomes more of a known entity, because it's basically your I'm not good enough, I'm not okay version of yourself that got reactivated.
Yeah.
And then you've got some strategy, and you have to look to see what the strategy is that you
But you
apply.
need two people who are in it together.
You both have to have the technology.
You can't have one person who's like, I'm gonna make this relationship work, and the other person is like,
no.
Yeah.
Probably what that person would have to do is accept the other person's reactivity.
yeah.
And that's difficult. That means you're kind of compromising.
Could you do it?
What's possible.
Could you do it? Because I know a lot of relationships where one person knows and takes responsibility for their actions, but they have someone else in that relationship
Yeah,
who
I was just coaching somebody today. So, for example, let's say you have somebody that you would like them to change.
Yeah.
You're in a relationship. So I'm telling you, they're mirroring something in yourself that you need to let go of.
So see the things that you're seeing in them
That you're trying to change in yourself.
All right. Yeah.
It's
kind of confronting.
It's subtle. It can be subtle.
Yeah.
But it's because it's part of your identity that's manifesting out there in your partner. Part of what you've been avoiding in yourself that you're trying to push away in them, that experience, and in a sense, you're together to work that out.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of a metaphysical view of a relationship. Most people are only in the relationship for pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure and happiness and love and all those good feelings are a result. They're the benefit of doing the work. My opinion.
Yeah.
The work and what it is that you should be committed to.
Good
is
catch.
your own evolution, both of your evolution.
Yeah.
Both of you say, we are committed to becoming more refined, evolved human beings. That means more of the qualities, being able to express more of the qualities that we know are how we would love to be.
Yeah.
More loving, more compassionate, more accepting,
I love how you stopped yourself when you said should.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people fall into that trap of thinking that the other person's experience is exactly what yours is. And a lot of people get upset at the fact that what they expect of themselves is somewhat similar, well, if not exactly, what they're expecting of the other people in their life.
That's where you got to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's also a process of really
acceptance, right?
Well, it's also a process of in communication, of really listening, deep listening, where you're not trying to, where your mind is not generating all these thoughts in response to what the person's saying while they're saying it. So you're not really listening. You're listening to your own mind, and that's difficult. Diane's better at it than I am, and she keeps coaching me and.
That's good.
Did you listen and tell me you got it before you respond?
I've actually had to feel what Kimmy's telling me.
No, that's good.
So the words that she uses sometimes can confuse me.
Right.
And I get so fixated on what she has said that I could interpret something completely different than what she meant and the feeling that was communicated. Because if I listen to the feeling, there's no miscommunication.
Yeah. This is interesting because this is where, remember I said we're the center of our universe. Yeah. Okay. So as you go further, you can the easy one, easier. First of all, I'm responsible for myself. And if I say I want to be happy, I better be committed to being happy, and I need to do whatever I need to do to honor that. Yeah. And it doesn't mean hedonistic, and it doesn't mean just greed, all that kind of stuff. That's the same stuff we've talked about. Yeah. But then you can start to see how you impact your relationship and your children. The people that are most closest to you, you can take responsibility for how they're showing up. And that's the next level out, circle out. Then and what you just said was that it's easy to interpret, which isn't reality over there. Yeah. It's your interpretation based on your version of reality. And then the next level out, I mean, it all gets to be actually when you get out here, it all gets to be interpretation, which is you're creating reality, and then I think you just gradually keep waking up to the way it is. Yeah. And the more you're willing, the less attached you are to your own view, the more you're willing to listen and experience what's actually going on. And so the great saints have talked about total non-attachment. You're just here and present, and you're not whatever's happening is happening, and you haven't got any preference for. You might have a preference, but you're not attached to it. Right.
You're not identifying. If I get this, then
it says something about me.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I had an experience on Father's Day where I was able to, for the first time in a really long time, maybe ever, listen to Kimmy, and she was acknowledging me for my journey through this podcast in being a positive inspiration to her and to her parents. Wow. She was talking about her parents having conversations that they never would have had before.
Isn't that great?
Acknowledging their own effect on the other person. And when she told me that, I beamed energy. I was so ecstatic because all of that voice that I had been listening to my whole life of I'm not good enough, I'm not powerful, went quiet, just shut up.
Isn't that great?
And I was like, holy moly, I am the creator of my, and it took me a little bit of time to just
accept the acknowledgement.
Accept that, but I was actually in mid-sentence sometimes that night. And I would say things that was just a habitual thing I would say. And I'm like, I don't believe that anymore.
Very good.
And so it's hard to hold on to that. I was able to peer behind the veil of what it's like and what kind of I'm hoping to strive for. And I know I can create that. It's just some of the challenges I'm wrestling with.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's an intention. Yeah. And remember, intentions are unmanifest in a sense. They gradually manifest, I think. And it's something that you've experienced, even just once, you've experienced enough of to know that it's a possibility. Yeah. So one of the interesting things is that in this moment of now, It's all possible.
Yeah.
All possible. Certainly internal experiences.
Yeah.
You know, and to be able to. So, for example, I've
Can you
trained 50.
share like what things that you kind of coach from once people understand the things that you're talking about? Like, what are some of the challenges that, I mean, I don't want you using exact examples from like the people that you're coaching, but I mean, I know that there's probably some typical challenges that our listeners can resonate with.
Most people are stuck in their ego.
Yeah.
And the nature of the ego is survival. And you're only going to survive. Your survival means repeat past patterns. So, what were your past patterns? And they may and the past patterns may be a sense of danger, a sense of fear about the world, or it may be a sense of that the world is supporting me and the world is wonderful. And I may be a little too naive because of that. So I'm not, so I walk into situations where I should have been a little more cautious. But on the other hand, if I'm afraid of everything, I don't walk into any situation and I never manifest anything.
Yeah.
So there's that level of, you might say, our identity, and we live within that.
Yeah.
But you can look at those. You can look at
Understanding
those
the
beliefs.
unconscious.
Yeah, you can look at
elements.
those beliefs, and as I said, it's ripples out for me like that.
Okay.
So, but I say the main thing is this whole sense of I'm not okay. I think there's two things. One is people forgot that they are born into a giant play that's already existent. Heidegger talks about it as you're born into a giant conversation. It's already out there. Yeah. I like the model of an actor. You're a baby, actor, but, and you're born into this play, and then you adopt a role. You have to fit in with your parents, have to fit in with your siblings, you got to fit in at school, and all of that's formative, trying to adapt and trying to be accepted and trying to, fit in, etc. And you play that role so many times you forget that you're an actor. And you think you're the role. That's the first mistake.
That's a good metaphor.
And so no actor, although there are a couple of them that got confused, they played roles so many times they were confused about who they were.
Yeah.
I've talked to some actors that had that problem. But the point is, no actor is going to be on stage and then forget, even while they're on the stage, that they're an actor.
Right.
They're playing the role full out, but they also know that they're an actor. Well, we forget.
Yeah.
And so when you forget, you lose choice. Real choice is, how am I showing up? Because how you show up in this moment makes all the difference. All the difference. The problem is we're so conditioned to show up the way we've always shown up that we have a hard time just shifting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wouldn't be myself if I were really loving here, if I weren't defending myself, if I weren't, being strong personality, that's asserting myself, and telling people what they, well, wait a minute, how come you're not listening? How come you can't, because there's fear that I'm not in control. Whatever the things are, those are the mechanisms that, that create dysfunction. So when I was coaching a lot of the teams of Fortune 500 companies.
And you taught Polaroid,
and
Sony, Xerox.
A whole bunch of them. Tandem computers back in those days. But anyway, they had gotten to where they'd gotten to through achievement.
Yeah.
And a strong personality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sitting in the executive.
Right. They had, to that point, been successful. Now, were they fulfilled?
that part's I satisfied and successful were the two things that I was orienting myself to.
That.
But success was the thing that they were failing at, because they didn't listen. They weren't compassionate.
Yeah.
They were defending their own point of view. They were trying to get, part of the budget more for their project than looking at the overall, and it was quite subtle at some level, and so we would go in and show them how dysfunctional they were. And so they would kind of wake up and be embarrassed, that they were trying to build a team, and they had none of the ability. Oh, they talk about how you should listen and and support each other and all that stuff, but then in action they weren't doing it at all.
Well, so those 4 questions that you kind of ask people when coaching them, you applied that to business.
Well,
right?
I probably.
Like who's
I
the
wasn't
business?
as aware when I was doing the business stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't as aware of those questions as I am now.
Okay.
As I am
now.
Yeah.
But as you look back, it was kind of the
I was doing
thing, because you were helping them understand who are they really.
Yeah.
What garbage do they need to clear up?
And what do they want to create together?
How to be more present, effective in the present moment.
Yeah.
And what future
how,
do they want to
how
create?
do they see? So for example, how do you align? See, if you look at most companies, probably 50% of the energy never gets to creating what they say they're up to.
I've been in companies like that.
Yeah, they're bitching, moaning, and complaining. They mouth that they accept it, but they're not really promoting what it is that because they don't they don't want to, they don't believe it, they think someone else screwed, whatever.
Yeah.
They got their personality stuff, and so a lot of the energy is not going toward what we're creating.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 things. One is, how do you support each other? How do you listen deeply? How do you, how can you offer feedback in a way where I got your back? Yeah. I want you to be successful. Here's what I think. Why don't you take a look at this? Because I think anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
You're and then how do we align? Maybe you have to give up part of your point of view to align your energy with what it is we agree on as a team that we're going to create.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that, and you can see the efficiency come up. And if people are also feel like they're learning and becoming more able and themselves, they're satisfied in their work. And so both of those things are possible, because otherwise people, they go to work and they feel like they've been beaten up and invalidated all day. Not all of them, but some of them.
Sure.
And the other ones are just being bullies. And I got all this done, and but it's just being a bully.
Well, yeah, you're one person in a company that you're not moving forward.
No, exactly.
But I think that's
so it's the same thing.
A good metaphor for life, because you're not just internal. You have to engage with everybody in your daily life.
Totally.
And so I think the practices and the philosophies that you've created are really powerful for helping people just live a life that's more aware, that's more conscious of your own responsibility in this created reality.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, what am I always, the first place for me is back here.
Yeah.
How am I contributing to creating, the company, team, an organization?
Community,
how am I contributing to creating what I perceive, what I see out there? And that's the first place. And then if you can admit that, I've been sabotaging us, in my own mind, etc. So, and how can I help me get off it, help me let go of this? That would be a good step.
That's
not
actually
people will do. Not many people would be willing to do that unless they feel it was a really supportive environment.
so that actually kind of goes into what I kind of wanted to finish on is what is it that we all want to create?
Okay.
And then second, what is it that we want to uncreate?
Yeah.
Because we need to be responsible for our creation of this universe and this reality. And if it's not the way that we want it, we need to understand what we're creating and learn to uncreate that.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's true?
Yeah. See, if you
What would you like to
well,
I
would say that for me it's I try to simplify it. I'm a simple
let's
guy.
do it.
So happiness, unhappiness.
Okay.
So happiness starts with just like kind of cruising, acceptance, and it goes all the way up to ecstasy, joy, ecstasy, in love, pleasure, like that.
Yeah.
So that's that whole range.
Yeah.
And I think we all want that. Some people say, "Oh, I don't care about happiness. I don't want," and I go, "Well, okay, I don't believe it." But anyway, I think we all want to be happy.
I think that too.
The methodology, as we've already discussed, most people think it has something to do with the circumstances out here. We've already discussed all that. So then there's the unhappiness. Now, if somebody dies and you're sad, you could be happy that you're sad. Matter of fact, you'd be a little bit concerned about yourself.
That would be a weird thing. Yeah.
It'd be a weird thing if I wasn't really feeling sad.
Yeah.
So happiness, and if I see something that's unjust and I'm not a little annoyed and angry,
Yeah.
where am I in this process?
Yeah.
So I don't. Inherently, anger and sadness are not unhappy.
Yeah.
There may be appropriate responses to, and fear, another one, appropriate response. But if I'm afraid all the time, that's inappropriate. Yeah. If I'm angry and I hold on to it in resentments, and I'm angry, I'm just an angry person that, with a very short fuse, or I'm sad and I hold on to the sadness for years, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's, so then you have to learn to complete something. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I talked about at my Yale 60th reunion was when I was defining some of this, I said, how can you complete the past? Mm. So I have the past is there if I want to draw upon it and its experiences, but I'm telling you, imagine yourself right now with no past. You're just here. Mm-hmm. You're free.
Yeah.
Totally free.
Yeah.
You can get to that place where there's no past. There's no past that's impinging upon this moment. And that means that I've looked at the mistakes I've made. I have forgiven myself. I've seen that it's part of my evolution, my learning. I'm okay with myself. I don't expect myself to be perfect. I make mistakes now. Hey, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm authentic.
Yeah.
And open.
Yeah.
And transparent.
Yeah.
And all of that is something that I have no secrets. I don't tell.
For sure.
People, but I'm willing to if there's an appropriate situation. I'm not holding anything back.
Yeah.
And so you work toward that.
Yeah.
And that's what I call completing the past.
Okay.
And we've already discussed that if you have something you're really really committed to manifesting and being happy, then whatever in the past is trying to sabotage that will come up, and that gives you a chance to complete that.
Yeah.
And it may be a belief about how the world is.
Yeah.
And it may be a past trauma that and some decisions you made about yourself that you need to complete. And
I'm working through that with counselor right now, is some of those limiting beliefs that I know. Like, I have this connection that I recently got made with a woman who can channel.
Okay.
And she did a channeling for me.
Oh, good.
And her guides told her that I need to calm down my monkey mind, because you can't build an empire on sinking sand.
No.
And so I know when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I've got to clear up the past. I've got to make sure that past isn't sabotaging me in what I want to create for my future.
Yeah, very good. Now, be careful about clearing up the monkey mind.
Okay.
I would say recognize it and just get a little distance from it.
Okay.
So that gives you a choice about, am I going to act through that thought, or am I going to let it go like a cloud?
Well,
and that's where your meditation comes in, of noticing your thoughts. You're not trying to have no thoughts.
Right.
If you get that, fine. I've had that experience. It's wonderful.
So let me give you some context.
Yeah.
The monkey mind was talking about how I was in utter turmoil with the challenges that I'm facing at work.
Okay.
And this new job being really, really challenging. So my anxiety was not allowing me to get into the flow. When I would meditate, my brain would be like, and it wouldn't allow me to. So it's exactly as you were saying.
So the anxiety is the worry. That's the future. The monkey mind's from the past. And again, it's part of us being human beings. From my perspective, we're not we're not saints. There may be a few self-realized individuals on the planet.
We're perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a process. And as long as you know, okay, I've got some work to do here, then you do the work. And like you said, you get up in the morning and you meditate.
Loving compassion with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Get up in the morning, 5-10 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier than you normally do, and sit. And just set the day. Set. What do I want? What am I interested in creating today? All right. Yeah, exactly. And like that. And do I see anything that comes in the way? And so you're kind of setting your day up. And then maybe in the evening you sit for 10 minutes and just say, review the day. And say, good.
What am I grateful for?
They're perfect. What am I grateful for? But also, what could I have done better at?
Sure.
Like that. So.
And what could I have done better, but through a loving compassion? Not like, God damn it. Why do I keep doing that?
Well, that's the better. That's the better. How could I be more loving? How could I be more compassionate? How could I have done that
through a more
easier?
Positive lens.
How could I have given somebody feedback more gently, where they can accept it,
or less judgmental of some.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that's those are skills.
Yeah.
Well.
So I want to thank you so much. It was super awesome.
That's great.
And so for everyone who wants to get in contact with Landon, I will
here are my books.
Here we go. What do?
Here's a happiness handbook.
Happiness handbook.
Yeah, here's a living awake.
Living awake.
Yeah, and here's our one, the awakened relationship.
The awakened relationship. There's one falling in love backwards.
Yeah, that Diane and I have done.
That's not here.
That's really great.
I really appreciate it, Landon.
Yeah.
Have a great.
Well, I'm glad this is great. I'm really thrilled, Matt, that you're kind of going through this transition process. It's just at the right time too.
This podcast is basically documenting my journey.
Isn't that great?
And it's amazing. It's every day is a new day.
Isn't that great? Well, anything I can do to contribute to you, or I'm available to any other people too. That's what one of the things I should just say. I'm 82. And I've done a lot.
You look good for 82, by the way.
And
you're still rowing.
Yeah, I'm still rowing. But the thing I love to do, and is coach and train and assist people.
So this is your passion.
This is my absolute passion.
So
as long as I can, sit up in a chair, I guess, and talk,
Yeah.
I can contribute. I don't have to be the athlete I was.
And you're being of service.
Yeah, exactly. And that, you know, I'm contributing, and it brings me enormous sense of pleasure.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's what my life's about.
That's awesome.
Good.
All right, thanks, Landon.
All right,
I'll
good.
see you guys on the next episode of Ctrl-Alt-Reset. And yeah, subscribe, like it.
Good.
and-
All right.
All right, that's it. Bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Ciao.